Hey everyone, today we're diving into a part of World War II that, for so many of us, is a total blind spot. We're going to talk about China's absolutely pivotal, incredibly brutal, and honestly, largely forgotten role as a major ally. This is a story that really changes how you see the entire conflict. So let me start with a question for you, a really simple one. When did World War II actually begin? Just think about it for a second. What's the date that pops into your head? Now, if you're studying history in the West, chances are you immediately thought of 1939, right? When Germany stormed into Poland. Or maybe you thought of 1941 and the attack on Pearl Harbor. And look, those answers aren't wrong, but they don't tell the whole story, not by a long shot. Because for literally millions of people in Asia, the war started way earlier. We're talking July 7th, 1937. That's when a small clash between Chinese and Japanese soldiers at a place called the Marco Polo Bridge just exploded into a full-blown invasion. For China, this was the start of World War II. And this war before the war, as some call it, it was fought on a scale that is just hard to wrap your head around. To really get why this matters, you have to understand the staggering human cost. Just let that number sit there for a second. 14 million. That's the estimated number of Chinese people who died in the 8 years of war with Japan. To put that into perspective, that is more than the combined military and civilian deaths of the United Kingdom, France, and the United States for the entire war. Just incredible. And beyond those who died, the disruption to society was, well, it was catastrophic. We're talking about as many as 100 million people being forced from their homes, 100 million refugees inside their own country. And here's the part that's so crucial to remember. For more than 4 years, before Pearl Harbor ever happened, China was facing the full might of the Japanese Empire, pretty much all by itself. The rest of the world was, for the most part, just watching. So all of this struggle, all this suffering, it all leads to this massive turning point in 1938. China had to make a choice that wasn't just about its own survival. It was a decision that would end up changing the entire course of World War II. Okay, so picture this. It's mid-1938. The situation looks absolutely hopeless. Japan's armies have taken all the major cities, Shanghai, Nanjing, you name it. The Chinese government is on the run. To pretty much everyone watching from the outside, it seemed obvious what was going to happen next. Surrender felt inevitable. But then, in this incredible act of defiance, China's leader Chiang Kai-shek and his sworn enemies-turned-allies, the communists, they make this impossible choice. They just refuse to give up. Instead, they pull back, deep into the country's interior to keep the fight going. And this, right here, is one of the biggest what-ifs in modern history. For any student of this period, it's a question you have to ask. What would have happened if China had just done the logical thing and surrendered? The ripple effects would have been absolutely world-changing. Japan would have controlled all of China. All those huge Japanese armies, they'd be free to go fight somewhere else. Maybe they attack the Soviet Union, maybe they push faster into Southeast Asia. The global war that we know might never have looked the same at all. So fast forward to 1941, after Pearl Harbor, China officially becomes one of the big four allies. But let's just say this alliance was complicated. It was a partnership that was often really, really strained. And this chart just lays out the disconnect perfectly. For the US and Britain, the strategy was Europe first, defeat Germany. China's main job, in their eyes, was to just be this giant sponge to soak up as many Japanese troops as possible. But if you're China, you've been bleeding out for years. And now you feel like you're being asked to carry the weight of a major power without getting the support you desperately need. But man, was that sponge effective? China's continued resistance kept over 600,000 Japanese soldiers bogged down. Think about that. More than 500,000 troops who could have been fighting Americans in the Philippines or the British in Burma. This wasn't some sideshow. This was a direct, vital contribution to winning the war. So that leads us to the big question, right? If China's contribution was so incredibly important, why isn't it a bigger part of the story we all learn? Why does it feel like a footnote? Well, the short answer is the Cold War. It changed everything. After 1949, China goes communist and suddenly becomes the enemy. For the West, talking about its old alliance with the guys who lost the Civil War, it was politically awkward. And at the same time, inside China, Mao's new government was busy erasing the nationalists' role in the war to make themselves look like the true heroes. So the story just got buried on both sides.
And this historical amnesia, it went on for decades. It really wasn't until the 1980s, long after Mao was gone, that people in China started to seriously re-examine the war and slowly, carefully, began to bring the nationalist story back into the picture.
And that brings us right up to today. I think this quote from the historian Rana Mitter just hits the nail on the head. It reminds us that the memory of this war, who gets remembered, who gets forgotten, is still shaping politics and relationships in Asia right now. It's not just old history. Which kind of leaves us with this final thought. Uncovering this history, it isn't just about correcting a textbook. It's about understanding how the world we live in today was formed. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How do the stories we choose to forget end up shaping our future?